ang bagong Republika ng Pilipinas.
I know that in the Philippines, my people are doing everything.
And you want a decent kind of life. We know that. That's what you fought for.
Good will triumph over evil, and good government will triumph over corruption.
Power in the Philippines is not built in Malacanang alone. Sometimes, it is built in committee rooms, in late-night debates, in laws that quietly rewire a nation. For more than a century, the Philippine Senate has been a battlefield of ideas. Some senators were loud, some were feared, some were calm, surgical, and unstoppable. But the greatest ones had one thing in common. They did not just react to history, they shaped it. Tonight, we count down the top 12 greatest Filipino senators in history, not based on hype, not based on who your parents voted for, not based on who trended on TV. Hello everyone, welcome back to FunFact. If you love videos that make you smarter every time you watch, please like, share, and subscribe, and tap the notification bell so you'll never miss our next episode. One important note, this is a top 12 selection, but the numbering is chronological. Oldest Senate entrance first, newest last, because greatness in the Senate is a long story, and this story started in 1916. So whether you agree or disagree, keep watching. Because these senators proved one hard truth about the Philippines. A nation can rise or fall on a single law, and the people who write those laws matter more than we think. Let's begin. Number 1 is Sergio Osmeña Sr., 1922 to 1935. Osmeña hails from Cebu in the Visayas. He earned his Bachelor of Arts at Colegio de San Juan de Letran and his Bachelor of Laws from the University of Santo Tomas, placing second in the 1903 bar examinations. He entered the Senate in 1922 with one mission: to build the foundations of a nation still trapped under colonial limits. Why is he in the top 12 greatest Filipino senators? Because Osmeña delivered the earliest pillars of Philippine nationhood. He helped secure the passage of the Hare-Hawes Cutting Act, the first independence law ever granted to the Philippines. It created a legal timetable for freedom and proved that Filipinos could negotiate sovereignty through statecraft, not violence. His greatest achievement soon followed: the Tidings-McDuffie Act, the law that created the Commonwealth of the Philippines. This act reorganized the entire government, gave the country its own executive and legislature, and set the path toward full independence. Without it, the Philippines would not have had an official roadmap to becoming a republic. Calm, strategic, and unshakable, Osmeña shaped the early Senate into a serious institution capable of governing a future nation. This is Sergio Osmeña Sr., not just a senator, a founder of the Philippine Republic. Number 2 is Juan M. Sumulong, 1925 to 1931 and 1934 to 1935. Sumulong hails from Antipolo, Rizal. He earned his law degree from the University of Santo Tomas and became known as one of the sharpest economic and legal minds of the early Commonwealth. When he entered the Senate in 1925, he came with one mission: to give the young nation real tools to manage its own economy. Why is he in the top 12 greatest Filipino senators? Because Sumulong wrote some of the earliest economic laws that strengthened government revenue and business accountability. He authored the gasoline tax law, one of the country's first major revenue measures. At a time when budgets were extremely small, this law funded early roads, bridges, and public works projects. It became the backbone of infrastructure spending in the 1920s and 1930s. He also wrote the Merchants' Books of Accounts law, requiring businesses to keep proper financial records. This forced companies to be transparent, reduced tax evasion, and became the ancestor of modern BIR bookkeeping rules. Quiet, disciplined, and fiercely analytical, Sumulong shaped the Senate's earliest economic foundations and proved that nation-building begins with strong, clear, and honest laws. This is Juan M. Sumulong, not just a senator, a pioneer of Filipino economic sovereignty. Number 3 is Jose P. Laurel, 1925 to 1927. Laurel hails from Tañada, Batangas. He finished his Bachelor of Laws at the University of the Philippines in 1915, earned his Master of Laws at the University of Santo Tomas, and later completed his Doctor of Juridical Science at Yale University, one of the strongest academic records ever carried into the Philippine Senate. Why is he in the top 12 greatest Filipino senators? Because Laurel shaped the country's justice system with reforms that still define Philippine courts today. He championed the reorganization of the judiciary, a sweeping measure that clarified court structure, strengthened judicial powers, and created a more professional and efficient bench. This reform became the blueprint for how modern Philippine courts operate. Brilliant, disciplined, and armed with world-class legal training, Laurel raised the intellectual standard of the Senate and proved that nation-building begins with the law. This is Jose P. Laurel, not just a senator, a legal architect of the Philippine Republic. Number 4 is Lorenzo M. Tañada, 1947 to 1971. Tañada hails from Gumaca, Quezon. He finished both his Bachelor of Arts and Bachelor of Laws at the University of the Philippines, earned his Master of Laws at Harvard University. He entered the Senate with strong academic training, moral courage, and fierce nationalism. Why is he in the top 12 greatest Filipino senators? Because Tañada used the Senate to defend workers, protect civil liberties, and demand real independence. He pushed laws that strengthened the right of labor to organize, to picket peacefully, and to bargain for better conditions. At a time when unions were easily harassed or broken, he fought for protections that forced employers and government to respect basic labor rights. Firm, unafraid, and incorruptible, Tañada proved that one senator with a spine could stand up to presidents, generals, and foreign powers, and win. This is Lorenzo M. Tañada, not just a senator, the grand old man of Philippine nationalism. Number 5 is Arturo M. Tolentino, 1957 to 1972 and 1992 to 1995. Tolentino hails from Tondo, Manila. He graduated valedictorian and cum laude from the UP College of Law, placed second in the 1934 bar exams, and later obtained his Master of Laws and Doctor of Civil Law from the University of Santo Tomas. Long before he entered the Senate, he was already the country's leading civil law mind. Tolentino was a standout even in his student years at UP. He won 7 gold medals in debate and oratory, became intercollegiate oratorical champion of the Philippines, defeated U.S. debate teams, edited the Philippine Collegian, and passed the bar in 1934. Why is he in the top 12 greatest Filipino senators? Because Tolentino shaped core laws that still govern the Philippines. He helped draft and later defended the Civil Code of the Philippines, the foundation of family law, property, contracts, and obligations. On foreign policy, Tolentino championed the archipelagic doctrine, asserting that the waters around and between Philippine islands, including what we now call the West Philippine Sea, form part of one national territory. This principle shaped the country's maritime boundaries and strengthened its claims in international law. Quiet, razor-sharp, and relentlessly prepared, Tolentino walked into the Senate not as a politician seeking applause, but as the professor who set the standards for everyone else. This is Arturo M. Tolentino, not just a senator, the master architect of Philippine civil and anti-graft law. Number 6 is Ferdinand E. Marcos Sr., 1959 to 1965. Marcos hails from Sarat, Ilocos Norte. He earned his Bachelor of Arts and Bachelor of Laws from the University of the Philippines, graduating cum laude and placing first in the 1939 bar examinations. Even in his UP years, he was known as a prodigy, a student whose sharp memory and analytical skill left professors impressed. But what truly set him apart was his eloquence and extraordinary debating skill. They used to say, "When Marcos speaks, everybody listens." Marcos was from a middle-income provincial family, not part of the wealthy, not a landed haciendero, and definitely not Manila high society. His rise was built on scholarships and academic achievement. He entered UP purely on merit, not connections, and suddenly found himself studying beside sons and daughters of the country's social, economic, and political elite. Why is he in the top 12 greatest Filipino senators? Because his Senate years produced the country's most important rural reform framework. During Marcos's time, Philippine politics was dominated by rich and powerful families who controlled huge farmlands. When he became Senate President, he broke that grip by pushing the Agricultural Land Reform Code, RA 3844, into law, a reform many believed was impossible at the time. Why was this law historic? Because it abolished share tenancy, ending the old system where farmers were forced to surrender a large portion of their harvest to landowners who did none of the work, such as the case in Hacienda Luisita in Pampanga. It granted security of tenure, giving farmers legal protection and the right to own or stay on the land they cultivated. And on top of that, it created the Land Bank of the Philippines, which Marcos intended as a tool to help tenants buy land, secure farm tools, and finally move from poverty to ownership. For countless families, this was the first real path toward owning the soil they tilled. Whether admired or criticized in later decades, his Senate record stands on its own. Disciplined, methodical, and focused on strengthening the country's economic backbone. This is Ferdinand E. Marcos Sr., not just a senator, a technocrat who reshaped Philippine agriculture and economic policy. Number 7 is Edgardo J. Angara, 1987 to 1998 and 2001 to 2013. Angara hails from Baler, Aurora. He earned his Bachelor of Laws from the University of the Philippines, graduating cum laude, placing 7th in the 1958 bar examinations, and later completed his Master of Laws from the University of Michigan. Before entering the Senate, Angara was already a giant in the legal world. He co-founded the ACRA Law Offices with fellow UP Law alumni, a firm that quickly became the country's most powerful and respected in the profession. He also served as president of the University of the Philippines, transforming the nation's premier university into a modern academic powerhouse. Why is he in the top 12 greatest Filipino senators? Because Angara built institutions, not headlines. His laws did not expire with the news cycle. They still shape Philippine education, health, banking, and national development today. His signature achievement? The creation of the Unified Student Financial Assistance System for Tertiary Education, UniFAST, and the modernization of CHED, reforms that expanded scholarships and strengthened the Philippine higher education system. Every Filipino student benefiting from government financial aid today stands on the foundation Angara built. He was also the driving force behind the PhilHealth law, which established the national health insurance system. Quiet, methodical, and fiercely competent, Angara was the senator who built the systems the country still relies on. This is Edgardo J. Angara, not just a senator, a nation builder whose laws still educate, heal, and empower millions. Number 8 is Raul S. Roco, 1992 to 2001. Roco hails from Naga City, Camarines Sur. He earned his Bachelor of Laws from San Beda, graduating magna cum laude, and later completed his Master of Comparative Law at the University of Pennsylvania. He topped the 1966 bar exams, a feat that instantly sealed his reputation as one of the country's sharpest legal minds. Why is he in the top 12 greatest Filipino senators? Because Roco wrote laws that empowered ordinary Filipinos, students, women, workers, long before these causes became popular. His greatest legacy, the Youth in Nation Building Act, which strengthened youth participation through the Sangguniang Kabataan and institutionalized national youth programs. Roco believed that nation building starts with young citizens empowered early, and he built the legal framework for it. He also authored the Anti-Sexual Harassment Act, the first national law to protect women and workers from abuse in workplaces and schools. Today, every Filipino employee who demands protection from harassment is standing on a law Roco pushed into existence. Brilliant, fearless, and impossibly articulate, Roco was the senator who fought for the powerless with the mind of a scholar and the fire of a reformist. This is Raul S. Roco, not just a senator, a legislative force who armed the next generation with rights, voice, and protection. Number 9 is Juan M. Flavier, 1995 to 2007. Flavier hails from Baguio City and later settled in Benguet. He earned his Doctor of Medicine from the University of the Philippines, Manila, and completed postgraduate studies at Johns Hopkins University and UCLA. Long before the Senate, he was already one of the country's most respected public health experts. Why is he in the top 12 greatest Filipino senators? Because Flavier transformed Philippine public health, and he did it with the precision of a doctor and the courage of a reformer. His most famous work, the Tobacco Regulation Act, which established graphic warnings, advertising restrictions, and nationwide smoking controls. Every Filipino protected today by anti-smoking policies stands on the law Flavier authored. He also spearheaded the Traditional and Alternative Medicine Act, a pioneering measure that strengthened community health care, validated local medical practices, and expanded access to treatment for poor and remote communities. Flavier pushed hard for vaccination, reproductive health programs, and grassroots health education, turning medical science into policy and making public health understandable to ordinary Filipinos. He was cheerful, simple, but deadly effective. In a Senate filled with lawyers and power brokers, Flavier was the doctor who saved lives through law. This is Juan M. Flavier, not just a senator, the physician-legislator who rewrote Philippine public health. Number 10 is Marcelo B. Fernan, 1995 to 1999. Fernan hails from Cebu City. He earned his Bachelor of Arts and Bachelor of Laws from the University of the Philippines, graduating among the top of his class, and later topped the 1953 bar examinations. Why is Fernan in the top 12 greatest Filipino senators? Because he was one of the very few Filipinos who excelled in all three branches of government: the judiciary, the executive, and the legislature, and still left a lasting legacy in the Senate despite his short term. His most important achievement was the party list system law, a reform originally designed to give farmers, teachers, workers, youth groups, and other marginalized sectors a real voice in Congress. Its intention was noble. Sadly, in recent years, greedy and ambitious politicians twisted the system for personal gain. This was never what Fernan envisioned. He created the framework to uplift marginalized Filipinos, not to empower opportunists obsessed with money, power, and more money. He also pushed for laws strengthening the judiciary, the ombudsman, and the Sandiganbayan, sharpening the country's fight against corruption and reinforcing institutional checks at a time when accountability was most needed. Calm, precise, and deeply respected, Fernan was the senator who elevated public service with integrity and intellect. This is Marcelo B. Fernan, not just a senator, a statesman who strengthened Philippine democracy through law. Number 11 is Miriam Defensor Santiago, 1995 to 2001 and 2004 to 2016. Miriam hails from Iloilo City. She earned her Bachelor of Arts in Political Science, magna cum laude, and Bachelor of Laws, cum laude, from the University of the Philippines. She was awarded the Best Debater and Best Orator titles at UP Law. She later earned master's and doctoral degrees in the United States, including at the University of Michigan, credentials that made her one of the most academically decorated Filipino lawmakers in history. Why is Miriam in the top 12 greatest Filipino senators in history? Because she redefined what legislative brilliance looks like. She walked into the Senate and instantly became its intellectual North Star, feared, admired, and unmatched. Her signature achievement was the Anti-Red Tape Act, which attacked the culture of slow, abusive bureaucracy and forced government agencies to adopt clear processes, fixed deadlines, and accountability rules. Every Filipino who demands faster, cleaner public service today stands on a law she fought for. She also championed the reproductive health law, pushing through decades of moral resistance to give women access to health care, family planning education, and reproductive rights. It remains one of the most consequential social justice laws ever crafted in the Philippines. Miriam authored landmark bills on international cooperation, anti-corruption, judicial reform, and cybercrime, many of which continue to influence Philippine policy long after her passing. Her legal mind was so respected that she became the first Filipino elected judge of the International Criminal Court, ICC. Fiery, fearless, and frighteningly intelligent, she dominated debates with the force of a legal hurricane. This is Miriam Defensor Santiago, not just a senator, the legend who made brilliance a weapon for the Filipino people. Number 12 is Renato Cayetano, 1998 to 2003. Cayetano hails from San Carlos, Pangasinan, and grew up in Pateros. A product of public schools, he later earned his political science and law degrees from the University of the Philippines as a working student. He went on to complete 3 advanced degrees, Master of Public Administration, Master of Laws, and Doctor of Juridical Science, at the University of Michigan as a DeWitt Scholar. A rare academic feat that marked him early as a top legal mind. Why is Renato Cayetano in the top 12 greatest Filipino senators? Because he modernized how the Philippines does business, regulates markets, and builds public infrastructure. He helped craft the Securities Regulation Code and the e-commerce law, 2 pillars that pushed Philippine financial markets and online commerce into the modern era. Every digital transaction and every serious online business in the country runs on rules he helped establish. He also co-authored the Clean Air Act, setting national emission standards and forcing government and industry to confront pollution with real accountability. Known to millions as Compañero, he brought courtroom precision to the Senate and turned complex legal issues into practical reforms. This is Renato Compañero Cayetano, not just a senator, a legal reformer who built the rules of the country's modern economy. And there you have it, our top 12 greatest Filipino senators in history. 12 senators, 12 stories of courage, intellect, and nation-shaping power. They came from different eras, different battles, and different convictions, but all of them left laws that continue to define the lives of millions of Filipinos today. Whether you agree with this list or not, one truth remains. A nation is only as strong as the people who write its laws. If you enjoyed this deep dive into Philippine history, please like, share, and subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss another episode of FunFact. where learning makes you smarter every single time. See you in the next video.